Right, that's it. I've had enough. Gaming isn't dying. In fact, it's probably the healthiest it's ever been. Since this is a YouTube video, I suppose I do have to make a numbered list, so... Number 1. "2023 has been the best year in gaming since, 2008 maybe? I mean, you got games like Baldur's Gate 3, Tears of the Kingdom, and not even mentioning games from the last few years like Elden Ring and Valheim. It's not like we've got a drought of games, or good experiences. I mean, yeah, this year's had a few stinkers, like Redfall, and the latest gem, Skull Island Rise of Kong, but we're in a year where a 7 out of 10 Bethesda game can release, and we all think it's shit compared to what else is on offer this year. It's absurd. I mean, you've even had developers crying that Larian Studios have become too powerful. Look, the Xbox 360 golden years were great, and I did have my best years of gaming back then, but how many of these games would you still pay full price for? Like $60 or pounds or whatever currency you're using, spaghetti. I can't imagine anyone would be rating Borderlands 2 very highly if it was 60 quid today. I think we allow our rose-tinted glasses of the past to misremember how good some games were. And if you are confident in your non-biased mind that you enjoyed those games solely on what they had to offer, not just because of who you were, what age you were, where you were emotionally and as a person, then how can you be sure that those games stand up to modern scrutiny without going back to seeing for yourself? Rasputin done a video on a similar topic that you should definitely check out, but the TLDR is that some games are best remembered and not re-experienced. I played Mass Effect 1 recently, being a massive Mass Effect fan, and forced my girlfriend to suffer through it with me for my own gratification. And honestly, the 16-year-old game's combat doesn't hold up too well. It's absolute bum. Yep, the story's still there and so's the world building, which is really what's doing a lot of the heavy lifting, because the graphics and the gameplay, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's not only graphics that can really show the age of a game and negatively affect its quality, but it's also the gameplay, whether that's through clunkiness or outdated trends like brown modern shooters or shoehorn survival crafting systems. Some games can't be separated from the time that they were made. Ocarina of Time is a masterpiece of its time, but it's not its time anymore. Yeah, you can stick that one on the tombstone of this YouTube channel. I'm not saying that it's a bad game, and I'm sure it was once undoubtedly the best game of all time, but I don't think you can seriously argue that it's objectively better than recent games with much more intuitive controls like The Witcher 3. Though the time travel mechanic is pretty cool. Gaming is the art form that is most dependent on technology for its success. However, when a video game is released, it becomes a product of its age, and clunky feeling games are excused for the year that they were released. I do understand this perspective, but it doesn't mean that modern games need to be handicapped on their technological achievements to make comparing them to older games fair, because it just isn't. Assassin's Creed popularised an entire genre, and effectively welding open world games to stealth and parkour mechanics back in 2007. Then Arkham Asylum released in 2009, and added a dark superhero flavour onto that formula, minus the open world, until the next game, Arkham City. Then Shadow of Mordor released in 2014, and added a Nemesis system to the familiar gameplay loop, alongside tokenising it, if that's a word, and then patented the Nemesis system, so thanks Warner Brothers. Then Horizon Zero Dawn released in 2017, and took the same open world stealth approach, but with a much larger focus on ranged combat and robot dinosaurs. Then Ghost of Tsushima released in 2020, and not only gave Assassin's fans what they've been asking for in a feudal Japanese setting, but also improved the swordplay. And now let's go back to Assassin's Creed. It doesn't look as good as it did in 2007, does it? It's clear that when discussing video games, we can't just take reviews made at the time of release as everlasting gospel. We need to look at those opinions through a modernised scope and re-evaluate where the game stands in the current context. Unfortunately, Metacritic doesn't really account for this, so you're always going to get some games towards the top that probably shouldn't be there. I mean, Pac-Man was loved back in the day, I'm sure, but I don't want to play that now. Gears of War 1. Great combat for its time, but we are so past waist-high walls and taking pot shots at whoever walks past. All these games were great influences in the gaming industry, but other games have taken these systems and refined them and built upon them, making new developments to the standard. So even if you can't play Ocarina of Time anymore because mummy sold the N64 at a car boot when you got your Xbox, you can still purchase those games on current systems. Those games that you love and applaud so much still exist to this day. You can still play them, and I mean most of them are getting remasters as it is anyway. They're being updated to compete with today's standard. Not to mention that they tend to review very highly. Apart from when they don't, which is usually down to the remasters not doing enough to bring these games up to a modern standard, which in itself implies that modern standards are superior to the classic ones. The old AAA giants who have recently made flops are being replaced by new and more inspired developers. Battlefield 2042 is a flop? Boom. BattleBit Remastered. BioEssence Dragon Age Inquisition? Boom. Baldur's Gate 3. Halo Infinite? Boom. Destiny 2. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to say that one. These days, you can't even sneeze without catching a Souls-like bullet hell roguelite on the back of the head with it. If you were to die today, chances are that a new Souls-like or bullet hell with roguelite elements will probably release on the day of your funeral. I mean, could you imagine that happening 15 years ago? There are so many genres of games out there now that I'm confident in saying that there is at least one game for each person on this planet that would satisfy them. You want to make a cult of animals and sacrifice them at your whim? Bam, Cult of the Lamb. You want to go for a hike as a bird? Bam, A Short Hike. You want to be in charge of your own restaurant and develop it and get mad at your friends because they're in the way? Boom, Plate Up. You want a game where you have to unpack boxes into your room? Boom, Unpacking. You want a game where you can work for Amazon Prime? Boom, Death Stranding. You want to play a game where you can date pigeons? Go to therapy. Whatever genres of game concepts that AAA studios aren't fulfilling, indie titles are picking up the slack and have been for the past 10 years. I mean, recently you've had Dredge, a Lovecraftian fishing indie game, which on paper doesn't sound like there'd be much of an audience for that. But no, the game sold over 1 million copies. You've also had Dave the Diver, which is another fishing game, but you take control of Dave, who is a diver. Strange that. And the game consists of 2 parts. One part where you're diving and fishing, and the other where you're running a sushi restaurant. You can't make this up. These aren't games for mainstream audiences, but yet they're finding them. I don't want to play fishing games, I have no interest in them. But Dredge and Dave the Diver look really cool. The big advantage that indie games have is that they're a much more refined experience that don't outstay their welcome, and they've got a price point to match that. For every 100-hour AAA open world wankfest, there's a really interesting indie 10-hour, 20 quid experience that you can find out there. Whilst the tiring AAA open world games are the new vanilla, they're not the only flavour available at the terrible metaphor of an ice cream shop. We are actually all spoilt for choice. And if you do like working 2 jobs, you have the choice to buy those £60 games with 100 hours of gameplay and stuffed full of weird microtransactions that nobody in their right mind would buy or even need. Of course, there are some negatives about today's gaming landscape, and we can't just gloss over them, because there are issues. I personally don't like free-to-play monetisation models, but those people who can't afford to spend £60 on a brand new game, or even £30 for a slightly older one on sale, can still have an amount of fun trying and playing current games like War Thunder or Destiny 2. Okay, maybe not Destiny 2. Free-to-play Destiny 2 is like paying for a hotel but not the all-inclusive package. You can come in, but you sure as hell ain't eating. But those people can still have fun on the system of their choice without having to spend a dime. It reminds me of the time when I first got my PC. Most of the games on my PC when I first got it were free-to-play ones, because Lord knows if I could have transferred my 360 library over, I would have done. Yeah, I got to side with you here. If you predominantly played multiplayer games, you're kind of fucked when it comes to progression systems these days. I do feel that multiplayer games have been utterly decimated from the way that modern games are monetised. Gone are the days of scoring 1,000 headshots for a golden skin in COD. Now you have nothing that allows you to boast of your skills in game. And in my opinion, it's embarrassing to publicly state that you wasted real world money on a virtual vanity item so that your friends will like you, because they don't. Ubisoft seem unable to stop themselves ransoming features into video games that 20 years ago would have been a cheat code. Like, Ubisoft, what was your thought process here when you decided to sell a completed map of Assassin's Creed Mirage in-game so that people could 100% it? You do realise that Google exists, right? I mean, how do you think I got this image? Oh, and also, fuck battle passes. Games are released and unfinished these days. There does seem to be a lack of care from developers to putting out their games onto the market. There's really this mentality of send it out there and we'll fix it later. I mean, it is a way around not having to hire QA testers, but come on, it's a bit scummy getting the people paying for your games to be the people that are telling you how to fix them. A lot of games should have the early access flag on them, because it would help us swallow that pill a lot more if you would just own up and say, we know the game's not finished, we want you guys to tell us how to fix it. Apart from if you're the developers that made Ark. Fuck you guys. But other than that, no. I don't think gaming's dying, and I think you're all catastrophising for views. You all sound like your average boomer. You need to calm down. Times weren't better back then. They might have felt less scummy, but these days you have what you had back then, and so much more. So relax, yeah? Gaming isn't dying. You're just getting old. Anyway, those were just some thoughts that I've had after seeing about 20 different YouTubers saying that gaming's dying. I think we're fine. We've got a lot of games to enjoy. There's a hell of a lot of games that have come out this year that are going to be classics. So stop worrying. There are issues, but there are also some amazing things happening. Let me know what you think in the comments, because I do love a good argument. No, but really, I want to know what you guys think. Like and subscribe if you liked and subscribe to the video, and I'll see you all soon.